Everybody, welcome to Remember Jimi Hendrix. I'm Larry Finellier, and we have a host of folks who will be telling us anecdotal stories and even somebody who was at Woodstock. All right, all that's coming up very soon. So let me cut this music before I get penalized. All right, so in the hangout tonight we have George Cohen,
Hey
my
everyone.
friend from Mountain View. Hey George, how you doing?
Good.
Good.
Looking forward to this.
Great. And George is a Hendrix fan also. Next to George, we have Linny Martin. Linny is from Florida, and Linny has a fantastic tale to tell us about Jimmy at Woodstock. And next to Linny, we have Oleg. Oleg is from Seattle, Jimmy's birthplace, and he also has some good stories to tell us about the legend. So, without much further ado, I mean, this is an open forum, folks. George, Lenny, Oleg. Oleg, let's start with you. Since
Sure.
you live in Seattle, you're around all the his memorial, his resting place, his the foundation that they have there, and the school where he attended, the high school. So
Right.
tell us a little bit of stories. Oh, also, yeah, your story, most importantly. Yes.
Okay. So I originally we came to the United States from USSR, former Soviet Union, and before probably about a year or so before leaving, which at the time was I guess 14 years old, I got this cassette tape, which is something that wasn't, most people did not have access at the time to Western music, and so everything had to be, if anybody's going to get anything, it had to come from black market. And so there was this tape that somebody bought and made copies. You end up getting like 100th copy of somebody, so the quality wasn't there or anything. But at the same time, it had this song called, at the time I had no idea what it was called. It was actually called The Power of Soul, and it was by Jimi Hendrix, and that was my first experience listening to Jimi Hendrix's music, and I was absolutely floored. I mean, at the time I was actively into music and trying to learn how to play drums. That was my desire at the time, and so I was totally into just about any kind of music. I was a huge fan of the Beatles, and here was this Jimi Hendrix song, which I absolutely just thought it was amazing, The Power of Soul.
Right.
But I had no idea, other than the fact that it was Jimi Hendrix, I had no idea about any of the other details. So then when we came to the States, I tried to get into a band. So this guy, this American, was a guitar player, and we were trying to figure out what song we should play, and we played this song called Freedom, and it turns out to be also a Jimi Hendrix song. And so that was kind of an ironic thing that we came from, the Soviet Union behind the Iron Curtain, and we get to the free country here, and we get to play the song called Freedom. It was the very first song I ever played here in a band, which is pretty cool. And of course, then I found out pretty quickly that Jimmy was born and raised here in Seattle, and I didn't know too many details at that point, but I kind of got into it as we were living here, and it was interesting to drive by Garfield High School, which is where he studied. Seattleites, obviously, everybody here knows who Jimi Hendrix was, and everybody is, to one degree or another, is a fan of Jimmy's. And later on, it's kind of different things happened in terms of my life. When I was in high school, I wound up joining a what they call experimental music band, and we played several Jimi Hendrix songs. So Jimi Hendrix was kind of part of my life going forward in more ways than, the more I think about it, the more it was happening.
Right.
Then here in Seattle, just a few more things I was going to add, that the Paul Allen, one of the co-founders of Microsoft, is a huge fan of Jimi Hendrix's, and he wanted to build a museum in town for Jimi Hendrix, and it was decided that it wound up being built as, they call it EMP, Experimental Music project.
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry, experience music project, not experimental experience music project. And it has a big wing dedicated dedicated to um, um, sorry about that, dedicated to
Go ahead.
Jimi Hendrix himself. And he's got several of his guitars, and he's a huge fan. In Poland,
Yeah.
he's a huge fan.
I-
And
I-
my sister,
Mhm,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead. No, I was going to say that you posted some of those photos that
Or
was
come from EMP, right?
Right,
From
EMP,
Experience
right, yeah,
Experience
yeah.
Music Project.
which we will share later. But go
Okay.
ahead. Go ahead with your story.
And then what happened was, my sister told me that she was working in this building. She was a property manager in the building, and Paul Allen's company was one of the tenants in the building. And she said that the guy was, they had some storage facilities, and he kept one of Jimi Hendrix's guitars there, and he was always just like a parent protecting a child that nobody should even breathe on. He was so protective about the stuff he had, Jimmy's guitars and some of the other memorabilia. And I know he collected a lot of stuff. A lot of the stuff in this Experience Music Project museum came from Paul Allen's personal collection.
So Paul Allen is a huge fan there. And
Huge fan.
Who would have known that?
And he also plays guitar himself. And he jams on guitars and everything else, and that's one of the reasons he bought these guitars initially, is because he's a huge fan, and he actually played on them. Imagine playing guitar that Jimi Hendrix played on.
Wow, yeah,
Stuff like that. So it was really cool. And then in later on, my sister, she's a baker. She bakes cakes, and she was approached by somebody who, people refer people all the time. Somebody referred her to do a cake for a birthday. So she bakes a cake, and she makes a cake, and she, the lady who ordered it, through this referral, came to pick it up, and then later on she called her back, and she said, "I'm such and such. You baked a cake for my son." And of course, my sister had no idea who this lady was, and she says, "Right now, I'd like for you to potentially bake a cake. We have a party for a bunch of people at the company I run, basically, and if you can bake a cake for 1,000 people." So my sister almost fell on the floor when the number 1,000 was said, but my sister still didn't have any idea what it was. And then the lady basically mentioned after that she was in charge of EMP, and the person who was in charge of EMP is Jimi Hendrix's sister.
Yeah,
and so my sister, not even knowing, she wound up baking a cake for Jimi Hendrix's nephew. And this lady was so impressed with the cake that she hired her to do a cake for EMP. And they had this big shindig for 1,000 people. And my sister was involved with that. And this lady showed her a bunch of family pictures that nobody has ever seen. And, my sister is not as big a fan as I am. But she was telling me all this stuff, and I was just absolutely amazed and also very jealous that she never took me to meet his sister. But so we had this kind of, in other words, throughout my life, I had all these experiences with related to Jimi Hendrix. Some of these are fairly close, as you can see, in terms of some of the people, that were part of his life. And just to show a few pictures here, this was just a few shots I'll show you. This picture here.
You're going to screen share it, right? Okay.
Yeah. Let me know when you can see it. Can you see it?
Not yet. I'm seeing a black screen.
Yeah, I'm seeing a black screen also.
All right, I think this is a Hangout problem they have. Let me see if I can show it to you this way. Can you see it now?
No. Okay, wait. I think I just saw something.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
All right, so you can maybe, blue box it. So anyway, so this was a picture I took at EMP. EMP is, by the way, EMP was built, with the money mostly from Paul Allen. He's the one who bankrolled the whole thing. He supplied a lot of the, guitars and things like that of Jimmy's and other materials. But also, it was designed. It's a very odd-looking building. If you look at, like on Google Maps, if you look at satellite view of EMP, it's a very odd shape because it was designed by Frank Gehry, the same gentleman who designed many very strange-looking kind of, and at the same time wonderful architecture pieces throughout the world. He designed EMP. So it's a very unusual, very different kind of piece of architecture. And then you're looking at, one of the rooms inside EMP. They had this huge poster when you come in when they had a special presentation called Hendrix Hits London, and so that's what this picture is of. And then another picture. Let me see what else we got here. Show you a couple more pictures here. This picture here is me at EMP when I was a little bit younger, and you can see they have these huge posters in different places of Jimi in various states of, I mean, you can see by his face how intense the guy was.
Right,
and,
right.
So that was really, really cool to see that. And they have a bunch of different things. And then, so this is the Jimi Hendrix Memorial. This is where he's buried. And this is my little son, and my cousin came to visit. He's a big fan of Jimi Hendrix, so I took him specifically to the memorial, and that's the first time I've been there.
Wow.
To the memorial. And then inside, unfortunately, I don't have a picture inside. Inside, when you go inside that structure that you see behind them, there's actually there's a plaque with his face, and I think there was also a statue, like he is kind of sitting in a sitting position on a guitar. I've kind of I haven't been there for a while. Anyway, Larry, when you come to town, we'll
yes, definitely. Yeah. That is one place.
And let me see what else we got here.
On my bucket list.
This here is one of the exhibits in the in the wing from EMP, where they have the actual clothes that Jimi Hendrix wore, his actual pants and shirt there. Right. As you can see, psychedelic colors, big time.
Was that what he wore at Isle of Wight?
I don't know where he wore it. I can't read the
text.
Because
I am looking at the photo to the right.
Yeah.
Right? That's him playing there. And I believe that photo was taken at Isle of Wight.
In that case, that's the one then. Yeah, because it's definitely, in the photo is the same. That's the costume he was wearing. I mean, that's what they're showing and stuff. So you can see how...
And it looks very close to the costume that he wore at in Atlanta, the Atlanta Pop Festival.
Possibly.
Yeah, it looks very close to that.
And you can see there's one of his guitars on the left there, and the drum set. All of these are authentic, from his band. I mean, all of these are the actual instruments from the band. It's not some mock-up stuff.
Wow.
So, and all of this is from Paul Allen collection, right there. And so let's see what else we got here. We got. Let me see here. 1 second. So there's another guitar of Jimi's from some other performance.
You can see. Was that the one at Woodstock? Or no?
Maybe Lenny remembers. I don't know. Lenny, was that the guitar from Woodstock?
What? Say the question.
Is this the guitar he was playing at Woodstock? I mean, did it look like that or not?
It looks similar, but I don't think that was.
Okay.
That's a stretch of time,
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And of course, all these things are left-handed because Jimi was left-handed. So.
Well, actually, that guitar looks like it was right-handed, but strung left-handed.
The other way around, yeah.
Yeah.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah. Because the cutaway is, higher up. Anyway, Oleg, thanks for those photos, man.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having
fantastic.
me. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely fantastic. Mark just joined us. Hey, Mark.
Hi. Thank you for the invite. Appreciate it. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. But before we get to you, George, you have anything to add?
Well, I don't have. I never went to a live Hendrix concert, but I've got to say that having grown up with Motown and Beach Boys and stuff like that, and watched as music began to change. We had groups like Jefferson Airplane and the Doors back then, and then hearing Hendrix, I was totally changed by that experience.
Wow.
For one thing, it was just such an interesting fusion of musical styles, with the roots in the blues, but it just went so far beyond. It was like stuff that was, a century ahead of where we were. And there didn't seem to be. I mean, I know he was playing this on a guitar, but there didn't seem to be a guitar between Jimmy and the sound. It was just the sound. The sound was emanating, as well as his voice was.
Wow.
And I had all the albums. It sort of became. It just sort of became the fabric of the experience back at that time, and it stays with you. There, for example, if you take his All Along the Watchtower, nothing can match anything like that.
It's funny you say that because the original author, Dylan said that was the best version of his song.
Yeah, I made a post to that effect a couple of months ago. Yeah, but it's just he's one of the rare musicians and who unfortunately was taken away from us too soon.
Yeah, exactly. 45 years ago today.
Yeah.
Which brings us, thanks for that wonderful, those anecdotes, George. Great. Brings us to Lenny. Lenny, let me bring you up front and center.
Alrighty.
Lenny was at Woodstock. She was no more than 10 feet from Hendrix when he performed at 9 o'clock in the morning, was it, Lenny?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
All right, so I'm going to sit back. We're all going to sit back and listen to your story. Tell us how old you were at the time.
I was going to say I was roughly 18, and I had to sneak away from my parents and my friends. I was little and short, and I scrooched through the crowd to get up as close to the stage as I could, knowing nothing about Jimmy. He started playing. It seemed like Woodstock wasn't there anymore. Everybody was silent. And as I said before, there were three things that really struck me. How tall and lanky and long-fingered Jimmy was. It just like that was part of him. The guitar was part of him.
Wow.
And also, as I watched him, especially with the Star Spangled Banner, it sounded like he was screaming or his guitar was screaming. And he mouthed words as he was going along. And I think the expression I used, that it sounded like only Jimmy and his guitar doing a duet. And the other thing that is very odd, and somebody might have the answer, is that he always wore a scarf, a long scarf on his left thigh. And it wasn't any particular standing out scarf like the stars and stripes, but it was long. And I was always curious.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
But I've seen quite a few photos of him playing with that scarf on his thigh, and that's a very, very good observation.
Good point.
Yeah.
It must have been something interesting about Woodstock, because you think about, he was taking a bit of a risk at the time playing the Star Spangled Banner on guitar, because that's a very standard, if you will. And that at the time that was a very avant-garde way of expressing that song. So there was a certain risk he was taking that I'm sure he was probably very excited about and felt confident doing. But at the same token, looking back on it, it seems like no big deal. But at the time, 1969, that was radical. That was a radical thing to do.
Vietnam and all. He himself had been in the Army, and I think that brought up some emotions that got him to play the Star Spangled Banner the way he did.
Yeah.
Um, you've heard me use this word before, Larry, but it was just fantastical.
Yes, I have.
Amazing.
Lenny, she posts or comments on all of my posts. You know, every Jimi Hendrix post. You know, I want and that's what sort of Lenny's folks like you and George and Mark and especially Oleg. I mean, you guys give me a lot of inspiration to keep the collection going, you know, and finding really unique photos and stories, you know, to keep it interesting. And Oleg, you've been invaluable in that you always get these interesting photos and posts and shared with me, and then I reshare it to my collection. And thank you again.
My pleasure.
George, I would at this point I would like you to show the stamps that the U.S. government, U.S. Postal Service, sorry, had released this year.
Yeah, that's right. I can't remember if you brought this to our attention or not, but
Yeah.
partner Marilyn Ritter went to the post office and got these. And I don't know if this is. I don't know
One of
how
them
well
is
you
for
can see
Larry
them.
when he gets here.
Yeah, one.
Yeah.
We got one sheet for ourselves and one for Larry.
Thank
So
you.
Next time Larry's in Mountain View, California, he gets one of these for free.
Thank you. That's awesome. That's awesome.
And because you're one of our favorite people, of course.
And you guys are my favorite. Also. Everybody's sharing the love. We're spreading the love. Speaking of which,
Can I say one thing, Larry, real quick?
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick. We've got about a couple minutes before we have to run here. But George, that was so eloquent how you described that there was no space between him and his guitar, and there was no conduit. There was like he was attached, like there was super glue. It was like so. That was a very eloquent way of putting it, and I hadn't quite thought about that. It's so hard to put into words. But
it sounds like Lenny noticed the same thing.
Same thing too. Yeah, yeah. Because she was right up there, close to him, and she said she noticed he was tall, lanky, and his fingers just fit right around that neck perfectly. And he was
Time wasn't using any fingers, and it was still playing.
wow.
Yeah, and the only other guitar person I can think of that had anything close to that was maybe Duane Allman. If you've ever seen any of the performances that he did.
The Allman Brothers.
Yeah.
One more thing that's interesting about Hendrix, which not too many people talk about, is that initially, when he was studying to be an electrician. I mean, that's one of the things that he took in school, and he was actually I don't remember where I read it or where I heard it, but he was tinkering a lot with the sound, and a lot of his pedals, special effects and everything were actually his creations. I mean, nobody had a sound like Hendrix because he was the one who put together the sound by using this, his knowledge of electrical approach to, and of course it was all new electrical music, electrical instruments. So the pedals and everything, the sound distortion is something that he actually messed with himself. I don't know if you knew that or not.
Didn't know that. This is definitely educational.
But he definitely, you can tell it. The guy had definitely a very different sound than just about any guitar at that time. If you listen to any other bands, nobody had sound like Hendrix, and this is one of the reasons why.
And isn't it a shame that after all this time has passed, people are really beginning to say, yes, the guitar the best. But way back coming out of Woodstock, nobody still knew who he was.
Yeah.
Or the people that know of him, they weren't going to go out and buy an album. They didn't know.
I think that's because in many ways he was way ahead of his time. And
Absolutely.
a lot of people did not comprehend the genius that he was at the time when he was actually playing. I think that's the reason why people at the time did not pay as much attention to him as they do now, because if you have innovations that happen, whether it's in technology or music or anything else, then it takes people a while to get to it. But if you have innovations that happen that are way, way ahead of their time, then it's that much more difficult for people to be able to comprehend just how incredible this particular contribution to whatever it is. I think that's why Hendrix's music is also, I think, is like Larry said earlier today, it's timeless. You listen to the stuff today, it's just as amazing to listen to it today as it was for people listening to it 50 years ago. So, and I think that's why, it's because he was way ahead of his time. He was, when we talked in the blab earlier today with Larry, I was saying that, the other musicians that were playing with him, not to knock them or say that they were bad, they were not bad, but they were musicians in a band at that time, and that's all it was. They were not anything special. He was unbelievably special. He just happened to be in that same band, and that's why right now we're talking about, them. This is why I went to a Buddy Guy concert.
Buddy Miles.
I'm sorry, Buddy Miles, because he was with Jimi Hendrix, not for any other reason. And so there's all this stuff that rotates. When the drummer or the bass guy dies at some point in time, I don't know if they're still alive, maybe.
No, they both passed. Noel
passed.
Redding, Noel Redding, and Mitch Mitchell he died in 2011, I believe.
I'm sure the reports indicated that he was the guitar, bass guy or drummer for Jimi Hendrix.
Yes.
So it's all around. It's not the group. It's everything around being with Jimi Hendrix. And I think that speaks volumes for the man and his immense talent, especially considering how young he died, and like George was saying, how much we wound up not getting because of the fact that he died so young. And so it's very unfortunate, of course.
Yeah. Totally get it.
Yeah, I wonder what would have happened. Do you think he would have eventually gone to seed and had to go to Vegas to stay alive?
No, I mean, I think he said himself he was going to die within 5 years or something, right?
Yeah. He was always making references to him not being around.
Yeah.
I
think he probably, there were so many musicians at the time on drugs and so many of them, died, that I think he probably saw the writing on the wall. He saw he's not getting out of it. He doesn't want to get out of it, and he saw that at some point the fate is going to catch up to him. So that's my guess why he thought that way.
Yeah, the shooting star.
Yeah.
If you ever get a chance sometime, Tracy Slick was quite good friends with Jimmy and Janice, and she had a gorgeous psychedelic picture of Jimmy after he passed. It's beautiful.
Really?
Yep.
Interesting. Okay. I guess I was gonna play some music, but I just have a feeling that my channel is gonna get yanked.
So let's not do that. Everybody knows where they can listen to Jimi Hendrix. You can easily go to Spotify. You can go to YouTube. There's a ton of Hendrix stuff. So if you're interested, especially for young people, if you haven't listened to Jimi Hendrix, then you're missing out big time. Just go to YouTube, look for Jimi Hendrix, and there's plenty of music, plenty of great music.
Yeah, Mark had to dive out because he was at an appointment, so he just popped in, and he said in the message he'll try to pop back in again. So Oleg.
Yeah.
Did you happen to find any of the photos?
No, unfortunately I haven't. But what I'll do, I'll check back with my sister and see if she's got them, and I'll make sure to post them and obviously share them with you. So
and what you could do, you could also because the event is going to be there permanently.
Right, I can add it to the event. Yes.
You could also add it to the event.
Yeah, I'll definitely try to get some of this stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah. So Lenny, you saw him at Woodstock. That was a great experience, and that was a great story. You also went to see him play a few weeks after in Philly, was it?
It was Philly, yeah. And I'll tell you, in a small area compared to Woodstock, it was very annoying and loud, and I couldn't get up as close as I.
Yeah, I was about to ask you if you were able to get 10 feet away from him.
That time, and it was not all of it was standing room only. There were seats.
Okay. All right. But after that experience, after that Woodstock experience, you became a fan. I'm sure.
Absolutely, I became a fan the first time, the first note that he played.
Wow. Yeah.
If you watch him play, it's not just the music; it's the guy's presence. It's the way he looked, the way he moved, the clothes he had. The deal with going into the crazy modes of playing with his teeth, with the guitar over his head. I mean, the guy had the control of the instrument like it was part of his body, like you were talking before. I mean, it's just a complete and total synergy between the man and his instrument without any effort practically in terms of playing. It's all coming out from within him, and it's all coming out through the sound. And I mean, it was just amazing. It's amazing when you watch him play. It's amazing how it looked. I'm sure it was even more amazing for Lenny to actually not just watch it on the screen, but watch it in real time.
Yeah.
And it's also amazing that he had a stage presence, but he also brought emotions to his face. And at different songs, like Hey Joe was a really good one, or Purple Haze, his facial parts changed as he was singing. And you could tell he loved that job. No doubt about it.
Amazing.
And of course, he had the accolades from the fellow musicians. Like we were talking earlier today about Clapton being a huge fan of his.
Yeah.
Townsend from The Who being a huge fan of his. I heard, I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard somebody told me one time that supposedly at one point McCartney, when he saw him, he said that he'd give up, all the fingers in his left hand, which of course his dominant hand, just to be able to play one time like Jimi Hendrix. So, all the Beatles were huge fans, especially McCartney, of Jimi Hendrix, and these other guys were no slouches. I mean, Pete Townsend became huge, Eric Clapton became huge. All of these guys became giants in classic rock field, and yet there were these immense fans of Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's amazing, because even watching all the documentaries they have on Hendrix now, two people are always there: McCartney and Clapton.
Right.
Those two are in all the documentaries, at least the ones I've seen. I think Heather Crafter just joined us. Heather, if you wanna, I never knew you were a Hendrix fan, but if you want to join us, let me know. Just say something in the comment stream, in the event comments, and I will give you a link to the invite. A link to the Hangout, and you can join us. Okay. Any other fascinating stories? I mean, I'm really enjoying this.
I told you a little before that I had a tremendously close friend that was living in Greenwich Village. Mm-hmm. I had been lucky. I went over quite a bit, met a lot of the entertainers around. This person said something about Jimmy, and I explained I had just seen him at Woodstock. We went to where he was going in to eat, and my friend stopped him and introduced me. And he stopped for a minute, and he spoke nicely, but he was in a big rush.
but the thing is, he took the time.
Yeah, and a lot of entertainers would rather slap you in the face and go.
Right.
So that's something in your heart forever.
Yeah. Well, I became a fan from about I was about 12 years old, and I was telling the story earlier. My neighbor, he he loved Hendrix. He was older. He was about 18, 17, 18, and I became a fan of Hendrix the day Hendrix died because and it was a Friday. It was a Friday when he died, 1970, 18th of September 1970 was a Friday. If you check that, because I remember it well. I was over at his house because his brother and I were close in age. So I saw him sitting there looking at the paper, real sad, and I asked him, what's wrong? And he said, "Man, Jimi Hendrix died." I said, "Well, who is Jimi Hendrix?" And he told me who he was, and he went inside and bought out his albums. He had 3 albums of Hendrix at a time. And he put it on the turntable, and he started to play, and he told me to listen. And just like you, Lenny, the first note,
Yep.
I was hooked. I was hooked. I was hooked. The next week, I went to the record shop in Port of Spain, asked the guy, I would like to get, because I couldn't remember the names of it. I said, I would like to get the latest album of Jimi Hendrix. He said, "You know anything about Jimi Hendrix? Only you?" I said, "Well, I just found out about him last week when he died, and I love his music." So I remember getting an album called Pop History. I'll never forget that. And I had it with me up on email where I brought it to the States. But in moving, it got lost, and I can't, but I kept that album till I was about like maybe 30, from 12, 13 years when my mother wasn't living with, they were in the States. I was living with my grandmother. Granny gave me the money to buy the album, and that was my first album I bought. Was Pop History, Jimi Hendrix, and I kept that till I was about 30 when I moved, and it got lost. But that was my story. How I became a fan.
Yeah, one time I accidentally won a trip to Las Vegas. It was a record. I was in a record store, and they had some kind of Jimi Hendrix related deal, and so I wound up winning. It was a trip to Vegas, and part of this deal was also they gave me a bottle of wine with Jimi Hendrix's picture and his name on it. So to this day, I have this bottle of wine. I never opened it. Never planned to open it.
Really?
And I have this special Jimi Hendrix wine bottle. Yeah.
Wow. What was that authorized by?
It was Tower Records.
Oh, Tower Records. Oh,
They were the ones that did this promotion with related to Hendrix. So it was pretty cool.
But you haven't opened it yet.
I haven't opened it, and I don't plan to because it's got a really cool. If you want, I can bring it and show it.
Yeah, bring it. Go ahead.
1 second.
Yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be fun. That'll be fun. Well, Lenny, I'm sure you don't have anything from Woodstock. No memorabilia from Woodstock.
No, but I'll tell you, well, another entertainer swung his bandana when I saw him in Daytona and caught it. But,
Who's that?
But nothing stuck. That was Willie Nelson. And he was doing on the road. Yeah.
Well, he's a living legend.
Oh, yes.
There's
There's a lot.
Do you have his bandana still with you? Go and get it. Yeah, go and get it. This part of the show is memorabilia moments.
Yeah, all I've got is some vinyl. But it's over in storage. I don't even have a way to play it anymore.
Yeah, well, like I said, I am just so looking back on it. I wish I took better care of that. That double. It was a double album too. Pop History.
Yeah, I didn't have that one.
It was released in England. That
Hmm.
that was because at that time we were getting a lot of music from England because we were part of the Commonwealth. Trinidad was part of the Commonwealth,
Uh,
so we were getting a lot of acts and records from. I think that was only released in England. It wasn't released in the United States. Oh wow! Let me put you up front and center. Yeah,
See that?
yeah.
See, it's got his signature right there
that's nice, man.
and stuff.
Yeah.
It's got, and then on the back it says, I'll just read it to you. It says, 1997 special edition label release. According to the Penguin Encyclopedia of Popular Music, Jimi Hendrix is without a doubt the most prodigiously original, inventive, and influential guitarist of the rock era. And stuff. So it's Red Table Unwind. It says.
Do you know
I
how
guess it's not, anyway. I'm sorry.
Do you know how many of those were made for the, I guess, promotion? They
You know, I don't know, Liddy. I wish I did, but I don't know. I just know I won the thing, and you know, it's, as you can see, it's totally unopened,
Yeah, yeah.
untouched, and it's got Jimmy's signature on it. And I don't know how many they made. I don't know where you find out, but
You usually if it's at the top label, you might have a number. Heather Crafter, a friend of mine, she was going to come in, but she says
that's what it says.
she's just going to watch us and enjoy Hendrix, enjoy the music. Thanks, Heather. Thanks for chiming in.
Anyway, that's my Jimi Hendrix trophy that I have, that I'm cherishing.
So, while you were gone, Oleg, Lenny said she got a bandana from another artist, not as famous as Hendrix, but from Willie Nelson. As I told her, that's a living legend. So
Right.
she has the bandana that he threw out, and she picked it up. Nice,
Cool.
nice.
that
Yeah. Yeah, that's a Willie Nelson bandana.
yeah, and he mopped his brow with it and swung it around doing On the Road Again and tossed it. I was in the third row in that concert.
Wow. Interesting. So any more stories? Any more? I want to play some music, and I really want to play some music, but oh
Well,
God.
just you know what, Larry, why don't you just put some videos that you like, put them in the stream. I mean, in the links into the event, and then
Yeah,
people
yeah.
can listen themselves.
Yeah. That's a good idea. That's a good idea. I will put some yeah. Good idea. I'll put
And
some
stuff,
videos.
and then everybody should listen to "The Power of Soul," my
Yeah.
favorite Jimi Hendrix tune.
That he played that at on the Band of Gypsies, right? That was done in '69, New Year's Eve.
I was
New Year's
listening
Eve
to it
Symphony.
in 1977.
Yeah.
That's when I listened to it the first time.
Power of Soul. I heard that back in 71 because my neighbor, again, he had that, and I got the pop history, and he had the Band of Gypsies because the Band of Gypsies was released in 70.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow.
So now, Larry, you have some research to do for us.
Yeah, with the
Many
bandana on his left leg.
and how many bottles? That's interesting. 'Cause they do that for different promotions.
Yeah.
So anyway, Larry, when you make it to Seattle, we'll go through the EMP deal, and then maybe we'll do a HOA from there.
That sounds like a really, really good good idea. And that sounds something like Seattle is definitely on my list
Excellent.
because again of Jimi Hendrix.
Exactly.
You know?
Okay.
And you're a bigger fan than I am.
I'm a big fan. Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, my favorite all-time group is the Beatles. I mean, I'm a much bigger fan even of the Hendrix with the Beatles. But in terms of guitarist, no question, he's my favorite, and you know, in many ways, I love the guy.
George
Giant.
just put a link there.
Yeah, I threw a link
on
in
the
the
Watchtower.
It's the story about all along the Watchtower.
Oh right. Oh great. Nice. 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 All right. Well, it looks like coming up on 15 before the hour, or actually close to 10 before the hour.
Yeah.
And I was gonna keep this open until, for an hour or so. You guys want to chime about anything? Talk about, I don't know.
No, I don't have any other stories, so
All
I
right.
think I'm done.
Okay. All right. Well, George, thank you. Liddy, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
That experience at Woodstock was awesome. And Oleg, my brother, thanks again. Thanks for all your posts on Hendrix and that I
My
reshared.
pleasure. Thank you for inviting me, and my pleasure. And it's great to be here as part of this. Obviously, a lot of people love the guy, and it'll never change, and so it's nice to be part of it.
Yeah, we will be dead and gone, and he will still be living on. The next
Absolutely.
generation, the next 2 or 3 generations will learn about Hendrix. Yeah,
Yeah.
If you thought about Hendrix,
Considering the state of music today, I don't think it's going to be just 2, 3 generations. I think it's going to be an ongoing event.
Yeah, infinity.
Exactly.
So
All right.
I have my my Hendrix shirt on. So.
Excellent. Excellent.
All right.
Thank
so
you.
Heather, thanks for watching, and who else was it? There were a couple
Mark
people.
Morris.
Mark, thanks for coming in. Mark. We appreciate your input, and also we had a nice blab today. Oleg, Mark, and I had an impromptu blab talking about this.
That was great. Yeah.
Yeah, it was good. So,
Thank you, Larry.
my pleasure. So, let's do it again next year, God's willing.
Sounds good. George, Lenny, pleasure to see you. Thank you.
nice to meet you. Yes.
Liddy, thanks again. George, thanks again.
Thanks, Lenny.
Bye-bye.